The second Turkish president, Mustafa İsmet Inonu, 1923 to 1938. Part 3. This coincided with an authoritarian turn of the Democrat Party, which culminated in a military coup. The Turkish armed forces overthrew the government as a result of the military coup on the 27th of May 1960. After 1 year of junta rule in which the Democrat Party was banned and its top leaders executed in the Yasyada trials, elections were held once the military returned to their barracks. Inonu returned to power as prime minister after the 1961 election, in which the CHP won the election. Right-wing parties have since continuously attacked Inonu and the CHP for their perceived involvement in the hanging of Prime Minister Menderes, even though Inonu advocated for Menderes' pardoning. Inonu's governments were defined by an effort to de-escalate tensions between radical forces in the Turkish army wishing for extended junta rule and former Democrats that wished for amnesty. Inonu's CHP did not gain enough seats in the legislature to win a majority in the elections, so in an effort to create reconciliation, he formed coalition governments with the Neo-Democrat Justice Party, the New Turkey Party and the Republican Villagers Nation Party until 1965. Forming coalitions with DP successor parties, however, provoked radical officers into action. Colonel Talat Aydemir twice attempted to overthrow the government in 1962 and 1963 Turkish coup attempts. Aydemir was later executed for conducting both coups. Aydemir's 1962 coup had the most potential to succeed when Inonu, President Cemal Gürsel and Chief of Staff Cevdet Sunay were held up in Çankaya Mansion by the putschists. Aydemir decided to let the group go, which foiled the coup. While in coalition with the far-right Republican Villagers Nation Party, Inonu renounced the Greco-Turkish Treaty of Friendship of 1930 and took actions against the Greek minority. The Turkish government also strictly enforced a long-overlooked law barring Greek nationals from 30 professions and occupations. For example, Greeks could not be doctors, nurses, architects, shoemakers, tailors, plumbers, cabaret singers, ironsmiths, cooks, tourist guides, etc., and 50,000 more Greeks were deported. These actions were taken because of the growing anti-Greek sentiment in Turkey after the ethnic conflict in Cyprus flared up again. With an invasion of the island imminent, American President Lyndon Johnson sent a memorandum to Inonu, effectively vetoing Turkish intervention. A subsequent meeting at the White House between Inonu and Johnson on the 22nd of June 1964 meant Cyprus' status quo continued for another 10 years. An event a couple years earlier also strained the otherwise amicable relationship Inonu held with Washington, namely the withdrawal of the nuclear-armed PGM-19 Jupiter MRBMs briefly stationed in Turkey, which was undertaken in the aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis. While Washington withdrew the MRBMs, some B-61 nuclear bombs are still stored in Incirlik Air Base. Inonu's governments established the National Security Council, Turkish Statistical Institute, and Turkey's leading research institute, TÜBİTAK. Turkey signed the Ankara Agreement, the first treaty of cooperation with the European Economic Community, and also increased ties with Iran and Pakistan. The army was modernized, and the National Intelligence Organization was founded. Inonu was instrumental in establishing CHP as left of center on the political spectrum as a new left-wing party cadre led by his protege Bülent Ecevit became more influential. Inonu survived an assassination attempt from a Menderes supporter in 1964. Inonu left his party and resigned his parliamentarianship afterward. Being a former president, he was a member of the Senate in the last year of his life. On the 25th of December 1973, İsmet Inonu died of a heart attack at the age of 87. The parliament declared national mourning until his burial. He was interred at Anıtkabir opposite Ataturk's mausoleum on the 28th of December. Following the 1980 coup, Kenan Evren transferred 12 graves from Anıtkabir, but kept Inonu's in place. Inonu's tomb took its present shape in January 1997. Inonu University and Malatya Inonu Stadium in Malatya are named after him, as is the Inonu Stadium in Istanbul, home of the Besiktas football club. A highly educated man, Inonu was able to speak fluently in Arabic, English, French and German in addition to his native Turkish. Maintaining an armed neutrality proved to be disruptive for the young republic. The country existed in a practical state of war throughout the Second World War. Military production was prioritized at the expense of peacetime goods, rationing and curfews were implemented, and high taxes were put in place, causing severe economic hardship for many. One such tax was the wealth tax varlık vergisi, a discriminatory tax that demanded very high one-time payments from Turkey's non-Muslim minorities. This tax is seen by many to be a continuation of the jizya tax paid by dhimmis during Ottoman times, or Milli İktisat national economic policy implemented by the Committee of Union and Progress regime 3 decades ago. It was only repealed in 1944 under American and British pressure. A famous story of Inonu happened in a meeting in Bursa for the 1969 general elections. A young man yelled at him, "You let us go without food." Inonu replied to him by saying, "Yes, I let you go without food, but I did not let you become fatherless," implying the death of millions of people from both sides of World War II. For the Kemalists, there was always a desire for Turkey to develop into a democracy. Before the independent group, Ataturk experimented with opposition through the Liberal Republican Party, which lasted 3 months before it had to be shut down when reactionaries threatened to hijack the party. In an opening speech to the Grand National Assembly on the 1st of November 1945, Inonu openly expressed the country's need for an opposition party. He welcomed Celal Bayar establishing the Democrat Party (DP), which separated from the CHP. However, due to the anti-communist hysteria brought on by the new Soviet threat, new leftist parties were swiftly banned, and rural development initiatives such as the village institutes and people's rooms were closed. Even with such pressure on the left, Inonu established the Ministry of Labor in 1945 and signed into law important protections for workers. Universities were given autonomy, and Inonu's title of unchangeable chairman of CHP was abolished. Inonu allowed for Turkey's first multi-party elections to be held in 1946. However, the elections were infamously not free and fair. Voting was carried out under the gaze of onlookers who could determine which voters had voted for which parties, and secrecy prevailed as to the subsequent counting of votes. Instead of inviting Shukru Sarıkolu to form another government, he assigned CHP hardliner Recep Peker to the task, who contributed to a polarizing atmosphere in the parliament. Inonu had to act as a mediator several times between Peker and Bayar, who threatened to have the DP walk from parliament if they didn't have some of their demands met, such as ensuring judicial review, secret ballots, and public counting for elections. On the 12th of July 1947, İsmet Inonu gave a speech broadcast on radio and in newspapers that he would stand equal distance from the government and opposition, prompting Peker's resignation. Inonu returned to the opposition after losing both the 1965 and 1969 general elections to a much younger man, Justice Party leader Süleyman Demirel. He remained leader of the CHP until 1972, when an inter-party crisis over his endorsement of the 1971 military memorandum led to his defeat by Ecevit in the 5th Extraordinary CHP Convention. This was the first overthrow of a party leader in a leadership contest in the Republic's history. Inonu left his party and resigned his parliamentarianship afterward. Being a former president, he was a member of the Senate in the last year of his life. On the 25th of December 1973, İsmet Inonu died of a heart attack at the age of 87. The parliament declared national mourning until his burial. He was interred at Anıtkabir opposite Ataturk's mausoleum on the 28th of December. Following the 1980 coup, Kenan Evren transferred 12 graves from Anıtkabir, but kept Inonu's in place. Inonu's tomb took its present shape in January 1997. Inonu University and Malatya Inonu Stadium in Malatya are named after him, as is the Inonu Stadium in Istanbul, home of the Besiktas football club. A highly educated man, Inonu was able to speak fluently in Arabic, English, French and German in addition to his native Turkish. The first Prime Minister and the second President of the Republic of Turkey, soldier and statesman İsmet Inonu was born in September 24, 1884 in Izmir. His father Recep Bey was from Bitlisli Karamogalari who moved to Malatya, and his mother Savriye Hanım who was from Delyorman region in Bulgaria. When he finished Shiva's military school primary in 1895, he attended the Artillery Military School in 1903 and he graduated from the military academy at the head of his class in 1906. He was assigned to the Second Army in Edirne as a staff captain. In 1907, he worked in the Committee of Union and Progress for a while. He joined the Action Army in Yeşilköy, which gathered to suppress the 31st of March incident. He served in the 4th Corps General Staff, which was sent to Yemen under the command of Ahmet İzzet Pasha and was promoted to the rank of major, becoming the Chief of Staff in Yemen Military Department in 1912. He maintained peace negotiating with Imam Yahya by taking on his first permanent diplomatic mission here. He was in Kadalka during the First Balkan War. He served as Chief of Staff Operations in the High Command during World War I and became Lieutenant Colonel in 1914. The following year, promoting to the rank of colonel, he was assigned to the Second Army Chief of Staff in Thrace. Later he was on duty in the Eastern Front and Sinai and Palestine campaign in the 4th, 20th and 3rd Corps. During this period he worked with the Second Army commander Mustafa Kemal. They created a close bond of friendship and he received a meaningful and significant register from him in 1917. He married Mevhibe Hanım in 1916 in Istanbul and immediately turned back to the front. He became the War Ministry of Defense Under-Secretary in 1918, returning to the capital during the Mondros Armistice Agreement. He worked in the Supreme Military Council. In these years he continued his friendship with Mustafa Kemal. Colonel İsmet Bey went to Ankara for a short period of time and returned in January 1920. On the 19th of March in 1920, upon the summons of Mustafa Kemal, he went secretly to Ankara one more time and took very important tasks for the War of Independence. Being elected as the Edirne representative, he participated in works and managed to found a regular army as the commander of the armed forces. He was sentenced to death by the Istanbul government in June 1920. Being assigned to the command of Western Front in May 4, 1921, he won the first and second battles of Inonu. Promoting to the rank of general, he was started to be called as İsmet Pasha. He played an important role in the Battle of Sakarya and of Dumlupınar in 1922. After the victory, he conducted negotiations of the Armistice of Mudanya in October 3, 1922. He became Minister of Foreign Affairs and Chief Delegate of the Lausanne Peace Treaty in July 24, 1923. He established the First Republic government in October 30, 1923. On the 8th of November in 1924, he left the Prime Ministry and was reassigned to the same position in March 3, 1925 due to the Sheikh Said rebellion. When the surname law was adopted, Ataturk gave him the last name Inonu. After 15 years in the Prime Ministry, he left the government by cause of some divergences in September 1937. He was elected president unanimously by the Grand National Assembly of Turkey, (NAT), after the death of Ataturk in November 11, 1938. He worked in multi-directional way on intergovernmental platform to prevent Turkey going to World War II and he succeeded. He enabled a transition to a multi-party system and assigned the government legislating an honest election law in May 14, 1950, being the Republican People's Party, RPP, and the main opposition leader. He fought for democracy for 10 years 1950 to 1960. As a result of 1960 coup d'état and the elections, he presided at 3 coalitions and continued this assignment until the 6th of February in 1965. He started left-of-center political view in RPP. As a consequence of disputes in the party, he resigned from the RPP and continued to be in the parliament as a senator in May 8, 1972. He died in Ankara on the 25th of December in 1973 and was buried in Anıtkabir upon the decision of the government. He had 4 children, among whom one died during the War of Independence, with Mevhibe Hanım. They had a role model marriage. Their children, İzzet 1919 to 1921, Ömer 1924, Erdal 1926, Özden 1930. Inonu was a calm negotiator and a loyal second man to Mustafa Kemal, so he was commissioned for the armistice negotiations in Mudanya and peace negotiations in Switzerland's Lausanne with the Western states including Britain and France. Though his relationship with Mustafa Kemal, the leader of the Republic, was quite coherent, he always had arguments with the under-leaders or the other second men, such as Rauf Orbay and Fethi Okyar, both the closest friends and collaborators of Ataturk. He was not liked among the members of the parliament either. So, Ataturk didn't think to choose him as the Prime Minister of the Republic that he was ready to announce on October 29, 1923. However, Inonu was assigned as the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs on October 30, 1929. As Ataturk was elected president by the Turkish National Assembly, Inonu was also assigned as the chairman of the Halk Fırkası, People's Party, which would become the People's Republican Party, CHP. Inonu ruled Turkey with an iron fist as prime minister and then as president from the early 1920s until the Democrat Party's great democratic election victory in 1950. Inonu's signature was under every strict action decision, including the annulment of the Sultanate and Caliphate, the heavy military actions against the Sheikh Said rebellion, the controversial capital punishment decisions and executions of the independence courts, coercive applications of secularism, the closure of political parties other than the ruling CHP, etc. Inonu ruled Turkey for 13 years in the name of Ataturk, the president. Yet, the duo had an argument in 1937, 1 year before Ataturk's death, and Inonu resigned as the prime minister. He was dismissed from his duty as the chairman of the CHP, too. However, Inonu was elected as president after Ataturk's death on November 10, 1938, and ruled Turkey as the president until 1950, when People's Vote elected Celal Bayar as president and Adnan Menderes as prime minister. I stop at this point today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world's incredible stories. Thank you for watching.